Watch out, Bo. You ain't gotta be up in my face all the time. Emotions. One way to look at emotions, I believe, is that they are tools for survival. Biologically, we are given adrenaline in moments that require a sort of fight or flight response. We are given oxytocin during moments of gratitude and compassion, you could say. Passion itself. You hug someone, the embrace of a few seconds can give you a shot of oxytocin. So I look at it as emotions are tools for survival, you could say. There comes times when you need these emotions in life to help you accomplish things. Love, when you feel the love for your family, your tribe, your nation. You may feel fear at certain times, or a certain sort of aversion to situations or different things, because this is an element of, this is a sort of a catalyst, I should say, for self-preservation. You may also feel hate sometimes. You need all of these emotions to survive. And I think that the spectrum of human emotion, whether you love something or hate something, or you are indifferent to it. Well, let me draw you a picture real quick to show you what I mean. Alright, I thought this up many years ago while I was bored in a college class. It's probably not unique to me. I may have seen it elsewhere, I'm not sure. I'm going to draw us a graph here. Got your y-axis up there. Got x over here. But you know, I think the human emotion range resembles a sort of parabola. On this side, say this point here, this is something that you absolutely love. Take this point over here, this is something that you hate with every fiber of your being. And then down here, where the y and x axis intersect, plotted at 0, 0. This is indifference. Some people will say that love and hate are opposites, which they are. But there's often a very thin line between love and hate. When I was in college, I thought that perhaps maybe the opposite of love is actually indifference here. Total indifference. You care not either way. Now in the last video I mentioned, well, a couple of videos ago, in a video called Remastering Ourselves, I talked about a sort of indifference bordering upon a contempt as a viable and possibly a very good asset to have when dealing with particular enemies of our people. And if you view emotion as a sort of tool, you must learn to recognize which situation calls for the correct tool. Now, what are you doing, Bo? Why don't you look over there? What's Loki doing over there? Anyways, you must learn when a certain tool should be applied to a specific situation. Now, emotions, they can be difficult to control. I myself am a fairly emotional person. I do have a temper. It don't show itself as much as it used to when I was younger, but it's still there. There's also feelings of ecstatic elation. Emotions can be difficult to control, but you must learn when to let them flow and when to stem the flow. Now, indifference bordering on contempt. Like I said, I think this is a tool that will prove invaluable in the future that we can employ. If you are indifferent to something, you do not care. It is nothing to you. Indifference bordering on contempt. Let's just say that overzealous emotions can sometimes lead to a sort of sloppiness, you could say. So I've got a story for you. You'll have to excuse me. I probably sound like a boomer telling this story. I think when you reach your mid-30s, you start to sound like a boomer sometimes. But I'm thinking back to May of 2004. I was a junior in high school. I was in 11th grade. And we were playing in a baseball game. It was the playoffs. The single A division, smallest schools. It was our state playoffs. And we were playing against one of our conference rivals. And you know, I don't care for sports ball. I've made that abundantly clear, but I do think it's important for kids and young men and young women to play a sport because you learn things. I could care less about professional sports ball, college, really. Don't really care. But when I was a young man, I was in high school, junior high, baseball was my life. I played baseball and football. And I was also a student of the game, I guess you could say. I greatly admired the history of it. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I bought a book called The Science of Hitting. It was written by Ted Williams. Ted Williams, I believe, was the greatest pure hitter in Major League history. He was the last player to hit above 400 as his batting average. His average was 406. I think it was in 1941. He could hit home runs and bat for average. And he wrote a book about it. His nickname was the Splendid Splinter. He could do it all. But another player that I greatly admired, and who was my sort of totem, you could say, was Ty Cobb, the Georgia Peach. Ty Cobb played for the Detroit Tigers at the turn of the last century. He was an extremely ruthless player. He was vicious. He was aggressive. I really admired that. I think he had the career, as far as his career goes, he had the highest batting average of any player ever. I think it was 367. I wanted to emulate him. Like I said, he was a sort of idol, you could say. His ruthless, aggressive, he played with a sort of unbridled rage. Which I know in baseball, it's not like football, But there are times when emotion is certainly helpful. But going back to May 2004, We were playing one of our conference rivals, the University School of Johnson City. They were like a feeder high school, I believe, for East Tennessee State University. This was a team that I did not like. I did not like a lot of the individuals on it. Many on my team felt the same way. We viewed them as stuck-up. We viewed them as thinking they were better than us. Because most of the kids on this team, they were down in Johnson City, their parents were middle class, upper middle class, while up in the rural boondocks of Appalachia, our team was working class. We did not have a lot of the same sort of opportunities that the kids at this school did. This was a school where they had to pay tuition. It was a private school, I guess. But you see, in this game, I started out pitching. I pitched and played first base. I'm left-handed. I started out pitching. I had some good games my junior year pitching. Jumbo, what are you doing? But this was not one of them. By the end of the second inning, I think I'd given up 6 runs. I was off that day. Didn't do well at all. They took me out at the end of the second inning. I could have been distraught. I could have let, regret hamper me, but I didn't. In fact, their pitcher, we knocked him out also in the second inning. And the game went back and forth the next 4 innings. In this particular game, I had a really good game hitting. I went 3 of 4. I hit 2 singles and a double. I knocked in 3 runs. And like I said, the game was back and forth. But how does this all tie into controlling your emotions? Well, it was in the bottom of the 6th inning. I was the first to come up to bat. They had put in this new pitcher. And I always batted third in the lineup my junior year, but I had to lead off this inning. And I was angry. I was pissed. I wanted to destroy this pitcher. I wanted to get something started, and I wanted to put a definitive end to this game. I wanted to impose my will. So I step up to the plate, and the first pitch is a fastball right down the middle of the plate, right in my sweet spot, about waist high. I swing, and I hit a rocket to dead center field. After I hit the ball, you can feel it when you know it's a good one. I just looked straight ahead and I seen the ball just rising. It was a rocket, a line drive, and it just kept going up before I turned my head to start running. I remember seeing the center fielder taking off backpedaling. I hit the ball to deep center field, and it bounced to the fence, and I was off to the races. I used that sort of unbridled rage and aggression to hit that ball so hard. As I was rounding first, making my way to second, I look over to the third base coach, who stands over there, and he was waving me to come on to third base. Well, Bo, you just like being in front of a camera, don't you? Why can't you be like Loki over here? Act like you got some sense, You're good. But, I see that he's waving me on to third base. So I round second, and as I'm making my way towards third, I know that I'm going to have to slide head first, dive into third base, because the relay throw, the center fielder had finally gotten the ball. He threw it to the shortstop, who was a very good player. And I ended up being gunned down at third base by about a step and a half. I could not believe it. I was infuriated. I should have, in reality, not listened to my third base coach, because I am the master of my own fate, after all. I should have looked and seen where the ball was and stopped at second. I got greedy. We got greedy. I wasn't fast enough. Wasn't quick enough. I committed the cardinal sin in baseball on offense for hitting. The cardinal sin in baseball is that you never commit the first or the last out at third base. That is the cardinal sin in baseball. Because you think about it, if you're on second base, you're in scoring position. I had the cleanup hitter behind me. I had good hitters behind me. I could have easily scored on a single. They hit a single. Could have easily scored. In that moment, that unbridled rage came back to haunt me. When perhaps I should have used a little bit of indifference bordering on contempt. What are you doing, bud? What are you doing? Should have used a little indifference. I shouldn't have been so greedy. Now I know this has been a... I sound like a complete boomer right now, probably. Reliving his glory days. But this story is an example of a lack of controlling your emotions. You want down? You want to go over there and see what Bo's doing? Now, you see, we ended up losing that game too. We lost by 1 run. The score was 11-10. If I had not made that mistake, the outcome could have been very different. But you live and you learn. You know, you've got to learn you've got to learn which specific situation requires the correct tool. That is the mark of the enlightened versus the unenlightened. That is the mark of the aristocrat versus the plebe. It is the mark of a man versus a boy. But anyways, keep those things in mind. You must learn when to let emotions flow, but also when to stem the flow. You need strong emotions to accomplish certain things, but you must bear in mind that there's situations where emotions can cloud your vision and lead you to overestimate yourself. Sorry for the story. I know I probably sound like a old boomer, but keep these things in mind. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.